LifeLock, how can I help?
The IRS said I
filed my return,
but I haven't.
1 in 4 tax-paying Americans has paid the price of identity fraud.
What do I do?
My refund, though. I'm freaking out.
Don't worry, I can fix this.
LifeLock fixes identity theft guaranteed and gets your money back with up to $3 million in coverage.
I'm so relieved.
No problem. I'll be with you every step of the way.
1 in 4 was a fraud-paying American. Not anymore. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Broadcasting from the Big Peach of Atlanta, Georgia. A show unfiltered, unscripted, raw. The Patriot Angle Podcast. Alrighty, guys, welcome to the show. Welcome to the Patriot Angle Podcast. We're also this is our series part 2 with the conversation with Grace Huang of Lotus Coaching. We had her on the show back on episode 209. So we tried to have her on last week, but we had some technical difficulties on our end, just with some storms and just it's been crazy. But welcome to today's show, and welcome, Grace. How are you doing this evening?
Thank you so much for having me, Michael. I am doing magically, and yourself?
I'm doing fine. We had actually switched our broadcast services here with Restream. We're no longer with StreamYard. Just a little bit better service, as you can see, with the graphics in the background and then the watermarks. It seems like it's a little bit better of a service, and the audio seems to be coming in a lot clearer this time. But yeah, doing very well.
Excellent, beautiful. Yeah, the audio is much better than it was last time, for sure.
Yeah, it was very choppy last time, and I'm not sure if that was just the storms, because we did have a lot of isolated thunderstorms. The cells were pretty strong, in the Atlanta area here in Georgia. So
yeah,
I'm not sure if it was due to the storms or just the quality of that network. But yeah, we're so glad to have a better quality of a network with Restream. But we're glad to have you back, part 2, calling it, to basically continue our last conversation we had. We got into a lot of conversation with the spiritual world, right? Then nature. We got into a little bit of municipal marijuana, the benefits of that, what it does to the body and everything else. And I kind of want to continue a little bit off what we were last talking about into some new topics, and any topics that you might want to throw out onto today's show. So
yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for having me, Michael.
So basically, I want to get into what we had last talked about. I think it was like towards the end of that last conversation, we had got into the benefits of municipal marijuana, cannabis, what it does to the body, and the benefits of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Medicinal marijuana there are so many potential healing benefits to using marijuana and cannabis medicinally, and I know that it is very helpful for a large number of people.
Right. And set aside the criticism of it, from the general public and everything else. I mean, do you see possibly maybe it becoming a better, how should I say it? a source that could be easily obtained by somebody that could use it. Do you think possibly it could go into that, Grace, at all, or no?
I think it's already on its way there. I think that's what we are moving towards, and I think that is where the demand is leading.
Right.
Because I feel for the most part, the collective consciousness is shifting in a way that we are wanting things that are more natural. We're wanting things that have less potential side effects that could be harmful for our bodies and for our energies. And so we are looking for more holistic, natural alternatives, right? Because Mama Earth is so amazing. She creates all this natural medicine for us to utilize in a healthy way. So because of this shift in consciousness and the recognition that a lot of these pharmaceutically manufactured drugs are really harmful and addictive in a lot of ways, there is this demand shifting towards more natural resources and natural plant medicines.
Right.
So I think in the future, and this future is being actively created as we speak, it's going to be easier to access these resources. You see this with the push to legalize cannabis medicinally across the U.S., and there's also a push to legalize it recreationally as well. This progress is already happening.
Right. I mean, we're starting to see, that push, especially in the United States. A lot of states are jumping on board with that. I know the great state of Colorado was one of the very first states to legalize, marijuana municipally, for, medication, and I think, Grace, the criticism that comes across the board with that, is, are these people going to want to, the individual going to want to, have this just for recreational? It's going to be an easier, pretty much, handout, I guess, right? I mean, but a lot of it is, like, does the federal government really want to, legalize this across the entire country, not just states? With Colorado, I believe New Jersey is another state that had just jumped on board not too long ago. I'd love to see this across the entire country, because it does have benefits, really, really good natural health benefits to that. It's good for the body. A lot of people are always questioning that, it destroys brain cells and this and that. I mean, maybe to an extent. I don't know if you have ever seen that, if it does or if it doesn't. But I mean, I think every drug, whether it's natural or, made in a lab somewhere, it's going to destroy something to an extent. You know what I mean?
There's always a potential trade-off, yes. However, I'm not 100% on this data either, but I believe that the destruction of brain cells more so happens when it's used for extended periods of time, right? And just like with anything, there is always a trade-off. And additionally, if somebody's using this natural medicine medicinally as it is intended to be used and not abusing the substance,
right,
then a lot of the times it's going to not be used for an extended period of time. And even if we play devil's advocate, right, and we say that, yes, people are going to be using this recreationally, really, when we look at that information and we say, okay, yes, people potentially are going to be using this substance recreationally, in the larger spectrum of substances and drugs that people could be using, this one is so low on the spectrum of potential side effects and harm that really who even cares about that, you know? Like
Yeah.
the other effects are so minimal, and I think that question that you posed about, is the federal government going to allow this to be legalized across the country? That's a very good question, Michael, because I think there's a lot of forces against this being legalized. The
Yeah.
pharmaceutical companies are going to lose a lot of money potentially with this being legalized. So, and as we know, they have their pockets in the government. They have their pockets in, or they have their hands in the pockets of the government and just about everything, right? So, I
Yeah.
think it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about, the federal government and stuff. They don't want to uh, uh, legalize it because, I mean, Grace, when it comes down to it, I've said this on my show many times, and I've touched on, municipal marijuana, that the health benefits behind it. Even pharmaceutical companies, they know the benefits from it, and even holistic doctors, you know they have been pushing this for years. Like, it does so many wonders for the body. you know um it's not the cure, right? It doesn't cure a disease or a virus or a bacteria, but
Right.
it controls it to an extent. And we're talking about natural herbs. We touched on that in our first conversation with natural herbs, right? Natural herbs are probably the best source of medication that the body can intake, right, on a daily level.
Yeah. I mean, we are nature, right? We are children of this beautiful planet, and as such, we should be partaking in the natural resources, the natural medicines. Those are designed for our bodies to have a symbiotic relationship with, rather than these manufactured substances that are really more harmful than they are beneficial.
Oh, they're very harmful. I mean, there's so many, and I always say this, when people, are trying to choose, medication for their bodies. I'm like, why are you wanting to put all those, cancerous ingredients into your body? Half that stuff is made in a lab, and, some of it, isn't really labeled on the prescription capsule itself. They don't really tell you exactly what's in that pill, whether it's an aspirin or Tylenol.
Right.
That has, like,
Right.
yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, you're totally okay. So here's the thing we have to keep in mind with that too, is that this is something that is basically being force fed
Yeah.
to the American population, right? So
Yeah.
we receive this marketing from these pharmaceutical companies as soon as you turn on the TV, as soon as you have any kind of media consumption, right? This
Right.
is everywhere, right? So a lot of people, number one, they're not aware of the side effects, right? Because the marketing is telling us that this is something that is good for you, this is something that's going to help you. So a lot of people receive that message and they take it at face value. And the second thing is that there is there can be a complacency as well with, okay, like, I know this is going to temporarily relieve my pain, it's going to temporarily reduce my suffering, so I'm going to take it because a band-aid is better than nothing, which
Yeah.
is fine short term, right? However, the problem begins to arise when there is not some other action that is taken to actually address the root cause of what's going on. Now, the thing is, most people realize, don't realize that there is a root cause to whatever disease there is. And you and I talked a little bit last time about how the root cause of these physical manifestations of disease are always energetic, right? It always starts on the energetic level first. So, because this education is not readily available and widely known by the public, people are just operating on what they know and what they've been taught. And unfortunately, there is a restriction of this information, so it is not easily accessible to people. So I
Right.
think the best thing to do is like to have that loving kindness and awareness for people who are still really entrenched in the ideas that we've been sold.
Yeah, yeah. And why do you think that is, Grace? I mean, why do you think that the information is not being, available to the general public? Why do you think is it because maybe the government or pharmaceutical companies, like we just had mentioned, they know the benefits, and it's easy to, sadly, and I'll say this on the show, it's easily to kind of make a buck from sick
Yeah.
people. I mean,
Yes. So I absolutely think that's the case, and this is something that I feel very passionately about. If these natural medicines, if the benefits of these natural medicines becomes widely known by the public, the profits of the pharmaceutical companies drastically drops and decreases, right? Because why are you going to take this medicine with these drugs, really, with all these side effects, when there's a much healthier natural alternative, right? It's a no-brainer. So because of this, the pharmaceutical companies are going to lose a lot of their customers. They're going to lose a lot of money in the process. And if you look carefully at our medical system, the way that it operates today, especially in the United States, everything is geared to feed illness. Why? Because the profit. Everything is designed to keep people sick and to perpetuate these forms of disease, so that these companies, these multi-billion-dollar corporations can continue to make a profit. And yes, it's very sad, and also it's true. However, the responsibility does not just lie with these companies. Yes, they do have a certain responsibility to the general public. I do believe this. However, the responsibility also lies within the individual to recognize the illusion, to first awaken to the illusion that's happening, to the marketing that we're receiving, and to question and begin to think for ourselves, to really decide for ourselves, is this drug actually helping me to heal, or is it just slapping a band-aid on it, on the issue, the root cause of the issue? And if so, what can I do about it? How can I take my wellness into my own hands, rather than outsourcing and externalizing the responsibility of that to doctors and to some other power that lies outside of myself?
yeah, I mean, you make a great point, and we have seen that across the board, especially coming from this, from COVID and everything. I don't want to get started with that, with the wellness, the health wellness from that, which, is on a completely different scale of what we're talking about, but it has relevance somewhat of what we're talking about. You have mentioned that pharmaceutical companies, are pushing more for, lab-based, and I'll use that term loosely, lab-based, medications that have little to, I mean, there's really no clinical trial behind these medications. Like you used the word Band-Aid, right? They want to Band-Aid our society with these medications. And, are they really fixing the problem, Grace? No, they're really not. Some of these people, they take this medication and they really, they don't feel fine. They're it's not healing their body naturally.
Right.
It's basically, it's Band-Aiding the situation. It's worsening the situation, I think, a lot, a little bit more than it should be.
Yeah, for sure. Because what happens, right? What happens when somebody is prescribed a medication? There, a lot of times, are side effects to that medication. So then what happens? You go back to your doctor and you get prescribed another medication to help mitigate the side effects of the first medication.
Yeah.
Right? So you're adding more and more and more medications because this medication, yes, it helped with high blood pressure, for example, but it caused this issue with this other system in the body because everything is connected in the body, right? So then you have to go back to the doctor and get another medication to help with this new issue that this first medication contributed to.
Yeah, and people wonder, and I'm going to try to be, respectful as possible by saying this, but people wonder why, when they get older, they have health issues, at the age of 40 and 50 and 60 years old. There's more people with health issues more than ever in our society, not just the United States, but the entire planet. I mean, we see people in the UK, we see people, in Canada, all over the place, everywhere, they're asking themselves, why am I having these problems with my body and this and that? Well, you really have to, sadly kind of look in the mirror and ask yourself a question. Have you been living a healthy lifestyle? We always listen to our grandparents, when we were young. Always eat your fruits and vegetables, right? Don't heavily medicate yourself. Try to exercise the best that you can possibly, get the exercise in, get all that in. Because when you get older, you should be living the same lifestyle as if you were younger. And I think a lot of people tend to, forget that, and they go off the path, the natural path. You know what I mean, Grace?
Yes, I absolutely hear you, Michael, and I understand where you're coming from with that. And I think we've accepted the fact that as we age, you're supposed to be sick. Like, this is some kind of programming, subconscious programming that the general population has.
Well, a lot of it has to do with, social media and the media that, like you said, these programs, they love to program people into, getting them on a path that they shouldn't be on, and especially we see this in the United States. I don't know if other countries are dealing with the same problem that we have here in the States, but let me say that again. I know that there are other countries in this world that live a healthier lifestyle, right? They live more of a natural lifestyle. They don't rely on medication or modern medication in that fact. And they live long, healthy lives. I mean, you can look at people in China and Asian countries that, they live more healthier than average Americans today. Their diet is so much better. Mainly they're on, a rice grain type of diet, and they're not, eating that fast food, the processed food that's full of, chemicals that just destroy your body. You know what I mean?
Right.
But, I just wanted to get into that. I know I kind of went off a little bit on the topic here, but I really wanted to get your insights on, what you had thought about, the municipal marijuana and, just modern medications, because I've always wanted to have it on my show. I always wanted to get insights on somebody that, may have that knowledge, what I mean, that those insights.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for sharing in that discussion with me, Michael. And you always wanted to have it on your show, and now you do.
Yeah, I hear you. But the next topic here, I want to get into the topic with recovery. Yeah, we had mentioned that prior to the show, before we had just started with your latest content here on your Instagram. You had posted a video about if you are a recovery. Do you want to elaborate a little bit better, because I'm still trying to catch what you had meant by that.
Right. So, absolutely, I will elaborate on
Yeah, I'm
that.
sorry.
So,
Hey, I'm learning. You know what I mean?
yeah. No worries. There's a learning curve for everything, right? So, the topic that I've been speaking on recently is being a recovering people pleaser. So, Michael, do you have any familiarity with what a people pleaser is?
uh, I mean, I have in my own aspect of it. I mean, you know, a little bit, but go ahead.
So people pleasing is the tendency to always be prioritizing somebody else's experience over your own, right? So instead of considering what your own needs are, your own desires, your own feelings, your own thoughts and opinions, you tend to default into figuring out if that other person is okay. What is their perception of you? What is their experience of you? You know, how are they feeling? How is it that you can be meeting their needs, right? So this is a very unhealthy way of moving through the world, an unhealthy way of relating to other people. And when I say unhealthy, I don't mean that, oh, shame on you, it's unhealthy, right? What I mean by that is that we develop these patterns early on in childhood, especially when we are taught, whether directly or indirectly through modeling, that our needs are not important and that we exist to to cater to the needs and expectations of other people. So, what I've been teaching and speaking on lately is how to break some of this patterning and to rewire and reprogram the subconscious mind through inner child healing and to help yourself to recover from these people pleasing tendencies so that you can actually live a life that you desire rather than operating based on the expectations and desires and needs of other people.
Hmm. Interesting. So it's basically what you're saying is the more, if I'm hearing this correct, the more stress you put on your life, uh, the worse you're putting into your soul. Is that kind of what you're getting at a little bit, or?
Not quite. So what I'm expressing here is that the way we show up in the world, in order to do that in an authentic way and create a life that actually resonates with who we are as unique individuals, we need to create a certain separation between what other people's experience of us are and what is it that we actually want to be creating and our experience of the world.
Oh wow.
Does
Okay.
that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you're getting into spiritual aspects that um I've never knew existed. It's fascinating to learn, because you know the human mind is fascinating. We always, as human beings, we're always thinking, like what if, and the possibilities. You know what I mean? We're always evolving as a species, and we're still going to evolve as a species as time goes on. You know, um, a lot of people think it's because of technology, but I think it's because of just who we are um,
Mhm.
as a being. You know what I mean, Grace?
Right. I hear you, Michael. Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, it's very fascinating that like just to learn, and I've been listening to a lot of your videos, on Instagram,
Hmm.
and some of it is very interesting. Some of it is, and I'm gonna admit, some of it I have to like kind of go back to like understand it a little bit more because
I hear you.
you get different types of content from different types of people. There are
Uh-huh.
similar people in your field of study that do things a little differently, and they explain it a little differently. So it's always interesting to see it from that person's, viewpoint. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Everybody's got their own spice, their own flavor, their own method
Right.
of explaining and teaching things. Yeah.
Right. And, especially coming, from you, it's a little different from, coming from somebody because I listen to just about everybody on, whether it's YouTube or social media, the Instagram, they have that different type of teaching, if you want to call it that, because it's the same thing, like you're teaching spirituality, just as somebody teaching, spirituality in a church, but you're doing it differently. You know what I mean?
Right. It's a similar lesson or similar concept, similar idea, just through a different perspective, a different lens of viewing it.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's very different. I like listening, and I like learning, from what you say, like what you express over social media. Guys, what you're hearing right now is Grace Hung. She is with Lotus Coaching, excuse me, Lotus Coaching, and you can find her on Instagram at Grace Hung Coaching. Anything else you want to kind of bring into the conversation, Grace?
Whatever you feel called to discuss, I'm happy to share and elaborate on.
Now, the last video that I actually posted on my Instagram, you were explaining something about relationships. Did you want to get into that a little bit more and kind of explain what you meant by that?
Sure. Let me just recall, because I recorded a video today.
It was earlier today on Instagram, yeah.
Okay, so the video about relationships. Oh, I was talking about I was talking to recovering people pleasers again, and saying how sometimes when we're in relationships with people, so we can have any kind of relationship with somebody, right? They can be familial relationship, they can be a platonic friendship, or a romantic relationship. A lot of the times what people who identify as people pleasers will do is they will fixate on the other person's experience of the connection and of them. So these can manifest as thoughts and ruminations, such as like, oh my gosh, like, what does this person think of me? Like, am I being nice enough for them? Am I, being good enough for X, Y, and Z? What is this person thinking about me? Do they feel like I could be in their life for long term, or whatever the case may be, right? They're focused on the other person's experience. So what I was sharing was that when you feel yourself beginning to do that, and to try and figure out exactly what this other person is feeling and thinking, pause and take a breath, and then bring your awareness, your attention back to what your experience of the situation is. Because when we are focused on the other person's experience of us, we often forget how we're actually feeling, right? We don't take the time to address, okay, like, is this a connection, a relationship that is actually healthy and beneficial for me? Right? We forget about that. We leave that on the back burner. So I think it's important to address and shift our awareness back to ourselves and recognize, all right, how do I feel around this person? Is my energy feeling like it's being uplifted? Does it feel like it's kind of neutral and staying the same as before I interacted with this person? Or do I feel like my energy is being drained, or I feel more tired maybe, or in a worse state of mind after interacting with this person, right? And start to become very aware of how we are experiencing things, rather than always focusing on somebody else's experience.
Right. So So necessarily, I mean, do you think? Here's my question for you. You use the term people pleaser, right? Do you think it is okay always to be that people pleaser, or to have that? Because where I'm getting at is, it's okay to an extent, but if you overdo it, the abuse is coming into play. You know what I mean? It's not healthy. You know what I mean?
Yes, I hear you, Michael. And I will have to disagree with you on that one, because I don't think it's okay to participate in pleasing other people, right? There's a difference between being kind and caring and compassionate towards other people and pleasing. Being pleasing is something that's different, very different entirely, and I believe that's unhealthy for all parties involved. So what I mean when I say that is, you can be kind to somebody and care about their experience, right, of the connection of whatever, and at the same time still be true to your own authenticity and to honor yourself and what your truth is, and to show up to that relationship in a truthful, aligned, and authentic way. Because that is what's going to serve the expansion and the growth and the healing of all parties involved. You're not going to serve anybody by pleasing and catering to everybody around you, even to a limited capacity, because even when we do this occasionally, what we're doing is we're not only limiting our own growth and our own expansion and healing, we're also limiting the growth and healing of other people. Because let me see, how can I illustrate this? Maybe with an example. So let's say that you have a friend and you are a lawyer, right? And this friend is always coming to you for free legal advice, right? So a people pleaser will respond and not value their own time boundaries and their own energetic boundaries, knowing that this is something that they typically get paid for. So they will instead, when their friend comes to them for legal advice, they will just keep giving and giving and giving just to please their friend and make them happy, right? Meanwhile, they're starting to feel resentful and unhappy because they don't actually want to be giving in this way, because it's not honoring their own time and their own energetic resources. So what I mean when I say that this is actually not helpful to anyone involved is, it's actually also not helpful not only to the person who is the lawyer, but also to the friend, because you are teaching that friend that it is okay to behave in that way and to expect these things for free. However, if you were to set that boundary as that lawyer and say, hey, like, this is, I appreciate that you value my expertise and my insight. However, if you want to move further with this exchange of services, you're going to have to book an appointment with me.
Yeah.
Right? By saying that, what you're doing is you are teaching this person to value the time and the experience of other people, and to honor that and to respect that. Now, by being a people pleaser and continuing to give of yourself limitlessly and to cater to the needs of this friend who needs your legal advice, what you're doing is you're enabling this person and stunting their growth, rather than giving them the opportunity and invitation to grow. Now, they may not like it, they may not like you saying no, but it's still helping them in the larger scheme of things.
Well, yeah, you make a good point. There's nothing is real right there. It's fabricated. Because you had mentioned, for an example, the lawyer and everything else, the friend. They're doing it for money. They're going to represent you, as as your as their client and stuff like that. But there's nothing real there. They're just going to kind of, yeah, that's okay. We got a strong case here, but this is what can be done. there, that's why I hate lawyers, and this and that. But yeah, I totally agree what you're saying. People pleaser versus somebody that's going to give you somewhat of reality of what it is, whether you agree with it or not. They're still going to tell you, do you want somebody to, I always use the word sugarcoat. Do you want somebody to sugarcoat something to you, or do you want somebody to tell you what it is, the truth of it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean, Grace?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying and where you're coming from. And I also think it's important to view this tendency, because I think a lot more of us have it than we realize, and a lot more of us participate in this patterning than maybe we might be aware of. So I think it's very, very important to view this tendency with compassion, right? And with understanding, and trying to understand, okay, well, how exactly did this patterning develop, and why do I do this thing, right? Rather than being super harsh with ourselves and judgmental of ourselves in that way, and understand that this is something that developed early on in childhood, and to take the appropriate measures to address that.
Yeah, I'm listening. Yeah, it's I agree 100%. You do learn this as a child, and as you get older, I think it fades away, Grace, because we get so comfortable with ourselves as adults versus as if we were children. It's easier to understand something and comprehend something when you're a child versus an adult. When you're an adult, you kind of, you want to do your own thing. You don't, I think it's because the parenting goes away in a way. I don't know, maybe this is just me saying this, but I think the mindset is a lot different as if you're a child, versus when you're an adult. The teaching goes away, from the parent or the guardian, or whoever's raising you and teaching you the fundamentals of life. You kind of fade away from that. You know what I mean?
The relationship dynamics do certainly change and evolve. However, as we become adults, we still have that inner child version of us within us. And in addition to that, we also have an internal parent or internal authority figure, internal mother and father dynamics that we can continue to cultivate and heal within ourselves.
Right.
So really, the dynamics, the external dynamics, yes, they're going to evolve and change. However, we can continue to honor the internal dynamics within each of us and cultivate that relationship with our own internal child, with our own internal mother and father, and to have more healthy and loving relationships with the different parts of ourselves.
Oh, yeah, I completely I completely agree with you. It's I'm sorry. I'm listening to you, and I'm completely speechless. I mean, I'm learning things for like the first time. I've
Right.
learned
A
things.
lot of information.
Yeah, I've learned things similar to what you're saying, but it's like I said, it's very fascinating to to hear different opinions, different thoughts from different people, because that's the learning tree of life, Grace. It's always great to learn different things from different types of people, from all walks of life, wherever they're from. I constantly listen to people, on my show with different things, different topics. I've had a person on the show going back like a year ago from Ireland, and we got into things that, I mean, I was blown away by some of the things he was telling me on the show, and I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
He had to say, are you there, Michael? I'm like, yes, I'm here. I'm just listening, Go ahead, the floor is yours, sir. But I mean, it's always great to to just listen. The more we listen, and I want to close this out on the show because we got about a couple minutes. But it's always great to listen to people because I think that's what's gonna make our species, humanity, better. We learn from one another to improve ourselves as beings. You know what I mean?
Right. There was this quote, I can't remember right now who said it, but the quote goes, knowledge speaks and wisdom listens. So that, yeah, I absolutely can resonate with what you just shared, Michael.
I think that was quoted by President Ronald Reagan in the 1980s. But I'm going to have to look that up.
Right. Let me see if I can. I don't know.
I think that was quoted by Ronald Reagan from 1984. I mean, I was 2 years old at the time, so.
I'm seeing Jimi Hendrix.
Jimi Hendrix, yes. He was a very fascinating individual. He was, in the rock and roll industry, but that man spoke very intelligently as a rocker. You know what I mean?
Yes. So Google, the amazing resource of Google is saying that Jimi Hendrix said this quote. So for anyone who is curious, we'll credit Jimi Hendrix with that.
Yeah. The late great Jimi Hendrix is probably smiling down from the heavens listening to this. So, Grace, we got about another minute left. If you want to plug in your information, I always love to have the guests plug in their information, so they can learn more about you and get in touch with you if they feel the need to do that.
Absolutely. So my name is Grace. I'm a spiritual coach, and I also offer tarot sessions and energy healing as well. You can find me on Instagram at Grace Huang Coaching, and you can find me on Facebook as well. The name is Grace Huang, and I do have a Facebook group for women. I do a lot of women's work. It's called the Savage Sisterhood Sanctuary, and Michael, maybe you can link this stuff as well in the episode so people can find these resources. I do sister circles that are free of charge every other Sunday. If you need a community of supported, like-minded, and hearted women who are also on their own spiritual journeys of healing and connecting with themselves, please feel free to join us over on Facebook. And if you are curious to learn more about some of the stuff that we talked about here today, find me on Instagram, and I will be happy to connect with you.
What was that? What was that one? That one group that you have, the Savage. What was it called? Savage Sister.
Savage Sisterhood Sanctuary.
Okay. Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes today, so people can follow it. You'll have to what you could do is, if you can private chat me after this podcast is over. The link, I will post that in the show notes after the show is over. So for the listeners that do tune into the podcast on Spotify, Google, and Apple, they'll be able to go right to that link. Okay, I see it right now. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
So guys, if you go over to www.facebook.com/groups/Savage Sisterhood Sanctuary, you will find Grace's group page there. Thank you for that information, Grace. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. You're so welcome, Michael, and thank you so much for having me on the show today.
Oh, you're very welcome, and I hope we could do this in the near future. I'd love to make a series of these episodes with you, because it's I'm going to be honest with you. It's fascinating to learn this. I always had I don't want to say a passion, but an interest in, the spiritual world, whether it's healing or just the nature of it all. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. Send me a message and we will talk.
Sounds great. Thank you very much, Grace, for coming on the show today, and you're always welcome back.
Thank you so much, Michael. Have a beautiful rest of your day.
All right, you too. All right, guys. You just heard Grace Huang on the podcast today, Patriot Angle Podcast, live on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook, guys. If you want to learn more about her, you can go over to Instagram at Grace Huang Coaching, okay? And you can learn a lot of fascinating things as we learned on the show. With that being said, guys, thank you for tuning in, and we will see you on the next one, guys. You just heard an episode of the Patriot Angle Podcast, an Anchor platform.